Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to day 2 of the 11th Weird Weekend. I'm just going to do some songs. I meant to do this last night, I forgot. So, 31. This is the 32nd day. No, the 33rd day of the Weird Weekend. And just in case anybody says I got my songs wrong, one year we had a 4-day Weird Weekend. It was the worst thing I ever did. It killed me. Also, we did it on a bank holiday, and I thought, hey, everyone will come down to Devon for a bank holiday. Didn't realise on a bank holiday everybody goes to see their maiden aunt in Cheltenham, and nobody turned up. However, these things happen. So, 33 days of Weird Weekend. It's getting very strange. Anyway, we usually start off the Saturday with me and Richard giving a lavishly illustrated talk on what cryptozoology is. Yes, Mrs. Bottom?
Hello.
Oh no, Mrs. Bottom.
Hello.
What's cryptozoology?
It's the study of animals that are weird. There you go.
Not quite. Not bad, but not quite. Okay, here we go. Lisa, what's cryptozoology?
The study of animals hidden or as of yet to be found.
Nearly. Pretty good. Pretty good. Much better than the study of animals that are weird. Poor Cara. I think she's taken over from Judith Jafar as the person who's the butt of my jokes.
Am I going to be the scapegoat for the weekend, am I?
Well, duh. In the same way as Harriet is my sort of trusted sidekick.
Oh, I see. I know his favourite.
Oh yeah, I mean, Richard, you know, for the last 15 years, Richard has been my sidekick. I think Harriet was joining the team. But, no, the study of cryptozoology, where's Darren? He's hiding, he already knows what cryptozoology is. Is he? That figures. Darren, shout, because I don't want to run all the way up. You gave the death. Where's... Great, take that to Darren. Darren in the kitchen last night, well, about 4 o'clock this morning, you gave a definition of cryptozoology, which I thought was pretty good.
Sorry, what?
Do you remember what you told me in my kitchen at 4 o'clock this morning after you single-handedly drunk your way through a case of beer?
Yeah, I told you that rude story.
No, you can't take these people anywhere, for God's sake. So, Dr. Nace, what was your definition of cryptozoology?
Cryptozoology is the study of animals that are known from anecdotal evidence.
And that's it. Okay, does anybody else want to know anything else about the introduction of cryptozoology? Because, basically, I think you all know, and I think Dr. Daz, I'm not going to call you Dr. Daz, I might, he doesn't like it. Dr. Darren doesn't like, Dr. Darren has summed it all up completely, he also doesn't like being called Dr. Daz. Now, so I think, I'm not going to waste time, I think you all know what cryptozoology is, because I've just had a look through the audience, I think you all know. Is there anybody who doesn't know? Is there anything anybody wants to know about? Oh, for God's sake, Ronan! Have you a question, Mr. Collins?
I can't remember what cryptozoology is. Is it something to do with the study of crisps?
I thought it was chocolates.
Is it still racism when you make jokes about the Irish?
It's never stopped you before.
Is there anybody else who wants to know anything else about cryptozoology, or shall I just hand you over to Barry Tadcaster and Orang Pendek?
The Max Blake collection is currently on loan at the British Museum before going on a tour of all the major museums of Europe. The Max Blake collection consists of a spoon, 2 biros and a pencil. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Max Blake.
Thank you very much.
I was going to work out how to use this. It's been on next, is that right? Good. Okay, thank you very much. You've all had a definition of what cryptozoology is, and it's a fairly broad subject that has a lot of, everyone's got a different definition of it. or two of the animals that we're going to be looking at today are sort of talked about in the cryptozoological literature. Due to that, but thanks to the definition earlier, we can discount these as being sort of cryptids in the true, real sense. So, just as an example, the Morosic, the spotted lion of Africa, is known from specimens. It is sort of a scientifically accurate animal. There are lions which have spots. There it is. So this is an animal which is known. This is not really a cryptid in that it's known from sort of anecdotal evidence, because the evidence is that. What we're going to be looking at today is animals which are known from their holotype. Now, when you describe it, when you come up with a new species to science, you, as well as publishing the paper in the paper in a scientific journal, almost all the time you will give a holotype, which is the one example of that species which you can use to compare other species to and say, is it as close to this species as to be the same, or is it a different species? So most animals have this holotype, but lots of them, well, the very vast majority, have other different types, as it were, which are other specimens of the same species, which are again in a museum, which you can go to and look at, and work out what your species is if you so wish. But these are all animals which are known from one specimen. This is just the holotype. There's nothing else on these animals, and quite often they are so poorly known. We know nothing about them other than that which we can guess from the specimen itself, whether it's a skin, whether it's a skull, whether it's a whole mounted skeleton, or whatever. Each one's different. Go and sit down there.
For God's sake, sit down.
So, as I said, this is the Morosic, the spotted lion. This was a well-reported animal up until the 1930s by a number of expeditions. It was always seen in sort of mountainous wooded habitat, and not very often seen with normal lions. This is the trend specimen. I think there's two of these so-called trend specimens. It's the 3-year-old adult male, and it's about 2 feet shorter than it should be for a lion of its age, and its mane is also nowhere near as big as perhaps it should be for a thank you very much for a lion of its age. Now, spotted lions are known; they are well known. There's a lot of reports of adult lions in public normal prides with a couple of spots on them, but nothing quite as extensive in the spotting as this animal. And the fact that it's got these dark spots and it lives in this mountainous wooded habitat correlates quite well with quite a lot of the big cats, animals with more stripes or spots, just to break up the animal's outline and camouflage. Tend to live in these darker environments. So you've got melanistic leopards are much more common in certain parts of extensively wooded Indonesia than they are normal spotted leopards. And so this works quite well. Whether the Morosic actually still exists, is still alive or not, and actually what it is a sort of fairly controversial subject. A lot of people say that actually it can't be. It's just a freak. It's just a mutant, and that these groups were perhaps mistaken for leopards or for other lions. And the jury is out on that, but it's almost certainly extinct now. To move on to another fairly well-known animal, it's a strange species of nightjar, which was described in 1995 from an incomplete, fairly rotten wing, which this is here, from southern Ethiopia. Now the IUCN, which publishes a red list, I'm sure you know vaguely what that is, which describes, which helps show how endangered some of these animals are. And this is known as, and this is treated as vulnerable on this list. And you're going to find out that a lot of these animals, which are only known from holotype, we've actually no idea how common these are, have got wildly differing conservation statuses, all the way from being data deficient, so there's not enough information out there for them to decide, all the way down to critically endangered. How you can, it's a bit hard to tell if something is critically endangered if no one's actually really properly researched it, if there's only one specimen in the museum, but still. So this animal has not actually been seen by scientists properly before, but a fellow called Ian Sinclair, who writes a lot of African bird field guides, led an expedition in 2009 and saw one individual, which was probably a male, over a few nights in and around the sort of campsite. They totally failed to film it due to the dark conditions. Obviously, it was night, and they totally failed to catch it. But it's quite a lot larger than other nightjars in the area. So it's a very distinct species. I mean, this large white patch on the wing is pretty diagnostic when you can see it in flight if you've got decent light. If not, it is a lot harder. But it's still a really interesting species which no one knows anything about, really. Not even in Sinclair, I would say. This is another nightjar, it's an adult nightjar, which it isn't really known from just the holotype. The holotype comes from 1880, and there was another one found many years later in an Italian museum, which was collected in 1915. One was shot apparently in 1960, but the body wasn't retained, and another one was found dead in the 50s, but again this body was not retained. There was a sighting in 1998, and calls matching the species were made in 1996 and 1998, but no one really knows the actual sort of status of the animal. The IUCN lists it as being critically endangered because massive searches between 2002 and 2007 failed to find any evidence of this animal still being out there. So just remember, this one is critically endangered, and it's known from 2 specimens. The previous species is vulnerable, and it's known from 1 specimen. Work out how for yourself. This is quite a nice toad. Cincilius carolinipsae, as it says. It has no common name, sorry. And this was named earlier on this year from central Panama, and it was collected in a massive collection trip to save lots of animals from Panama, lots of amphibians from Panama, from a rather nasty chytrid fungus called, I'm going to embarrass myself now, Batrachochytridium dendropatidis, which has got a heck of a name, which you should all have read about, which is currently ripping its way into North and South America, and it absolutely devastates amphibian populations where it hits, and basically we're looking at a mass extinction of amphibians in this region. It's already swept through most of Central America. It's now making its way into South America, and it's going to absolutely devastate amphibian populations in the areas. And we don't even know what's out there, because this specimen was collected in 2005 and kept for 5 years in Zoo Atlanta with a pair of related species called Incilius coniferus. But this is a male. The male was larger than this other species, about 1.5 centimeters larger in the snout ventral end. But it's parotid glands, which you can see on the dorsal view, which would be here, which is where some of the poison comes from, are actually quite small and very vestigial. If you look at Carina's cane toad, if you came to see it at some time, they have these huge parotid glands, whereas these are highly reduced, and they've got these massive fleshy pads on the hands and feet, which you can see here, which is again quite a unique. What's the word there? Feature? Yeah, exactly. Its combination of characteristics is obviously not held by any other animal. that's related to it, and it is a totally new species. It was kept with this other species, and reproductively it totally ignored them. It was not interested in mating with the female. It wasn't interested in fighting with the other male for possession of the female. It wasn't interested at all. And so it wasn't getting any mating signals from that female that matched its species, and so it wasn't bothered, which is good. But that was recommended, it's not officially listed yet, that was recommended as being critically endangered to the IUCN, which is quite interesting. But moving on to this is actually another species of tree frog, which was collected in the same expedition, which is again just known from this holotype. This is the animal alive, and I quite like its hands and feet. There you go. Now, strange rodents of the Andes. These guys have been talked about quite a lot in a number of well-known blogs and newspapers and things. This group of animals called Cuscumis. I noticed this particular one was described in 1999 from a dead adult, which was originally killed by a weasel. And this is the holotype here, and a related species is this one called Oblivitus, which is probably Oblivitus, but maybe Oblivita, and no one's actually really sure because everyone was a slightly different scientific name for it, but never mind. Now, this one was described in 1912 from two 400-year-old skulls, which are buried in Inca tombs in Machu Picchu. The IUCN lists it as extinct. This photograph comes from a Spanish or Portuguese, I'm not too sure the language newspaper from last year, which apparently shows this species quite happy and quite alive. If you go back to the original one, you can see it's got this sort of white blaze of fur on its head and sort of a much darker fur for the rest of it. And again, you can see this on the actual animal here: white blaze, dark fur. And that's looking at a very sort of basic view, but that's and unfortunately, I've totally lost the reference for this website. So if anyone wants to find this, I'm of no help at all. But there it is. Now, a chap called Emmons, who wrote in 1999, stated that there is no good reason for this species to have become extinct since the 1500s, and unlikely still exists. And indeed, we now have this apparent photograph of the species, but I'm not totally sure. But it was probably kept as either a pet or for food by the Incas. But other strange rodents include there we go. Other cloud rats. This is Proteromus. This species, Scardenbergi, is well known and is really quite cute. I have no idea what the other species look like. I can't find any photographs of them at all. So I'm really sorry. You sort of use your imagination and think it. Imagine it looks something like this. Now, the species called Australis, was collected between 1974 and 1975 on Dinigat Island in the Philippines. But no one's totally sure when it was actually collected, or if it was actually collected on the island, because it was purchased from the island from the local inhabitants. Whether it was actually collected there or not, no one's that sure. No, sorry, I got that totally wrong. I misread myself. Pteronus paulus, a different species, was purchased from the same island, but its collection locality is not known. So that's two species, same genus, which are only known by this holotype. And locals keep reporting that they see these strange arboreal sort of furry rat type things, but they've not actually been seen by scientists yet. That species Paulus was described in 1881 It was collected in 1953, so it lay basically untouched and undescribed in the vaults of the Smithsonian Museum. So, you know, it just shows you what's out there. If you look hard enough in a museum, you don't need to go and spend thousands of pounds tramping around the rainforest or whatever. Just to find a new species, you can quite easily find it if you have the time to sort of look in a museum and really get to grips with the specimens there. I've got to move on to invertebrates because invertebrates are great. This is a very strange species of sea urchin. Now, sea urchins are, I'm hoping, fairly familiar animals for everyone, but this is a really weird looking one. You've got your the test here, which is the main body of the animal, with these radiating spines coming out from it. And normally they look something similar to this, with these long thin spines radiating out from it, or perhaps some much shorter, but again quite thin spines. Or they could have quite long, but these much thicker, chunkier spines. Or no spines at all, but these large sort of bosses. And these are all basically all predator defence and to help anchor them down into the substrate or between rocks or wherever they're living. Or they may have no spines at all, like this species here. These little sort of furry bits with a tube feed which it uses to move around. So I mean these are the sort of 5 fairly general types of sea urchins. There's quite a bit of variance between. There's also sort of halfway houses between the different groups, which aren't taxonomic groups, but they are, you know, there's a lot of variance there, and so you can see again. There's just some more photographs of these spines, which are really weird. You've got this sort of, they're very thick, and then they abruptly stop with a very what's the word? Not smooth surface, I can't remember the word. With this bizarre sort of, it looks almost raptorial. It's not at all, but it's well spiked, almost like a harpoon coming off the top here. And it's got these different spines. This is the oral surface. That's the mouth there. So different spines here, which it moves around to help it move itself across the substrate. But this was collected in, I think, 32 from off the coast of Japan, quite deep down. But no one knows why it's got these spines. No one has a clue. We could sort of postulate for hours on what these what these are for, whether they're for predator defence or whether they are perhaps the strange surface helps encrusting sponges grow on it, and perhaps that's good for camouflage. We don't know. We've no idea, and it's really interesting. But it's another interesting species is Mirapinna, which is sort of vaguely well known. Again, it's just known from the holotype. This is a drawing of the holotype. This bizarre sort of fins here, and sort of almost hairy sort of surface to it, which apparently secretes a predator-deterring substance. But no one's quite sure. For years, this animal was deemed to be quite interesting because yes, it was known for the holotype, and it is quite weird. But it turned out to be a whole lot weirder last year when some actual research was done on this and other sort of similar animals. And there was three different families of animals we're looking at. We're looking at Mirapinidae, which is the family that this animal comes from. Another group called Cephalinidae, which are called the flabby whale fish, which are a group of deep sea fish, and another group called Megalomyceridae, which is weird. Now, each one of these animals represented a different stage in the life cycle of the same group of animals, but no one realised this. So one family was all males, one family was all females, and the other family was all juveniles, which is really weird. And these have all been placed together in Secuminidae. And so you can see here, these are the 3 life cycles. You've got this bizarre larva here, which has this long tail known as a tape tail. And these are loads of these are only known from the holotype. I can't go into any detail about the species. There's so many that you just know from one specimen. This is what's known as a big nose, which is the male. This large dark mass, which you can't see very well, is the liver. And what they do is they all through their life, the males try and accumulate body fats and tissues to pump into this liver. And then when they become sexually mature, their jaw totally fuses up, and they sort of exist purely on this liver, which is a weird way to go. But actually, they live surprisingly long for an animal that basically can't feed. This is the female here, which has this enormous great big mouth. This is what's known as the flabby whalefish, and it looks like a fairly typical sort of deep sea animal. But this is all the same species. This is the same species that were described originally as 3 totally separate species. I think this is the holotype of each one. But that's really quite weird. But that's something that would never happen with mammals. There we go. Yeah, quite an interesting one here. This is the Senkaku mole, which is a very small mole from the Senkaku Islands, which are northeast of Taiwan. They're totally uninhabited with about 2.7 square miles of land area collectively. It's the only place that the species is known from. It was named in 1991 from a specimen collected 12 years ago. But a survey from 1991 failed to find any moles. They did find 1 ton. And it's unfortunate for this animal because there's a lot of introduced goats which do threaten its survival as they threaten many animals worldwide. But also there's a massive conflict between Japan, Taiwan and China over the territorial waters here. And this mole is basically stuck in the middle, and it's likely to be extinct now if it isn't, or very, very tiny population still exists. But now I'm going to move on to a very, very famous. Oh no, not going to look at the skull first. That's the skull here. With the jaws here with these fantastic teeth just gripping earthworms and things like that. But this is a very famous animal, the double-banded argus. It's a species of pheasant, possibly. And these are feathers of the well-known Argus pheasant, which is one of the larger pheasants. This is one of the display feathers of the male. That's another body feather. That's another body feather. And this here is the double-banded Argus. This is a it says a plate from 1872, of this double-banded Argus, and that's what's known as half a feather. That's it, which is fairly unique. But just to get your eye in, this is a male Argus pheasant, totally normal, with these enormous wing feathers and tail feathers and things. And so this is sort of vaguely what the double-banded Argus would look like. Now it was described the year before that plate was produced, from 1871. The collection data is unknown because it was found in a shipment of hats and clothes actually into London, but it's listed as extinct everywhere because it is not known from any sightings or any reports. It's one feather. Even locals in the area have no idea of the species. Now, Parkes wrote in 1992, the feather fragment was found in a bundle of feathers of A. argus, and I've seen no admission by any other author that the colour, pattern and the slender shaft may represent nothing more than a developmental accident in an individual of A. argus. Which sums it up fairly well from my point of view, because no one knows. No one knows if this is just an accident or whether this is the one feather of a very strange species which is likely extinct if it is a species. And Davidson postulated that the species was flightless, and again this is disputed by Parkes, And no one knows how you can properly tell from one feather that the species was actually flightless. I mean, you can do, but there's so much variation, as you saw in that male Argus specimen, there's different shapes and functions of feathers. No one knows anything about it, whether it's actually a valid species, whether it isn't. Who knows? But I'm going to move on now to golden moles, which are great. Golden moles are a very enigmatic group. They're poorly known, poorly studied. They're one of the animals which was lumped in with the other insectivores, like shrews and moles and things, and was lumped in with things like tenrecs. But then it's now been found out as people have actually started properly researching these things. These are a totally different group of animals from a totally different lineage, as it were. And they're much more closely related to things like elephants, manatees, and so the whole group has now been called Arthrotheria, and it includes tenrecs, Sirenians, dugongs, elephants, things like golden moles, and sengis, the elephant shrews, and another strange group, aardvarks as well. So these are poorly known animals. But this is Van Ziel's golden mole. It was described in 1938, and then in 2003 a second specimen was found about 150 kilometres up further up the coast. This is in western South Africa. This is, I assume, the 2003 specimen, but it's listed as endangered and is likely to be affected by tourism and mining. And again, this is a species that no one's really seen in the wild, no one's studied it, and so we've already had an animal that's been listed as extinct, already had one that's critically endangered, some that are vulnerable, and this is somewhere in the middle as endangered. So no one really knows. I've got photos of the next two species, so just imagine they look like this with slightly different coloured fur. There's another species from northern South Africa, which was named in 1950, and loads of expeditions have gone out to the area to try and find this, but none of them have been successful in capturing the specimen. And again, agriculture has changed the landscape dramatically. And then maybe this species is actually already extinct, but who knows? Another animal which I think is which I would put forth as the least known mammal on Earth, which is the Somali golden mole, which was found in 1964 from a partial skeleton, just a bit of skeleton that had been thrown up by an owl in an owl pellet. So the owl had eaten the rest of the animals and thrown the bones and things away and stuff they couldn't digest. This is from Somalia. The IUCN listed as being critically endangered for a while because no one has seen this animal, there's no scientific reports, nothing like that. But then downgraded it to data deficient due to the fact that little sampling was taking place in the area that the pellet was actually found. So, I mean, it looks to me like the IUCN have got no sort of hard and fast rule about animals that are only known for the holotype and therefore jump all over the place, data deficient, critically endangered, extinct, vulnerable, endangered. No, they don't really know. I mean, it just shows beautifully that if they don't really know, no one else really knows anything about these animals. They are really interesting. Another quite cool species is the harlequin cat shark, which was caught off the coast of Somalia in 1968. The only known member of its genus. It's about 1.5 foot long. It's got very fine gill rakers for feeding on small vertebrates, and an egg case was found in each uterus, which suggests that at least it's oviparous, which is interesting. And now something very complicated, which are the Trachylepis skinks. I think Wikipedia had this species that's listed as one of its featured animals for one day a couple of months ago, so you might have already heard of it. But Trachylepis is a big genus of about 70 different species of these skinks. All of them are African, other than one species called Atlantica, which lives on one island just off the coast of Brazil. And genetic studies have been done on this, and it turns out that about between 8 and 9 million years ago, the ancestral specimens of this animal were rafted over from Africa, all the way over the Atlantic. They landed on this one island, still alive, and they flourished and eventually speciated into this new species. But two of these species are very poorly known. One's called Pashudi, which is possibly from Peru. No one's really sure. It was probably collected there, but no one really knows. And there's another one called Maculata, which actually have known 3 specimens. But these have never actually been seen since. And there are 3 pretty good theories to explain their existence. They may have been collected in Africa and totally mislabeled, which is perfectly possible, we don't know. They may have been introduced from Africa and rendered extinct in this area, and also extinct in Africa itself. Or they may actually be from Peru, and that Maculata is actually from Guyana. But no one knows. No one has any idea. They've never been seen again, and no one knows actually where these animals are really from. But there is no doubt that these are distinct species. But yes, and this is the skull of Maculata. Well, the head. To me, it looks like any other skin does, but I'm not a specialist. Now this is an interesting one. This is the Lake and Kay hair wallaby. So now going all the way over to Australia, the Northern Territories. This animal was collected in 32, and is only known from the skull. And these are just a couple of photographs from the original description of the animal. But it probably lived in the spinifex grasslands and sand dunes and things. And it's almost certainly now extinct due to things like cats and foxes preying on the animals. I mean, hair wallabies are only small. They are, as it says, around the size of hares, just a little bit bigger. And so so the young at least would be easy prey for things like cats and foxes. Burbridge in '88 mentioned oral reports of this species continuing all the way up to the 1960s. So this is an animal very, very similar to the Morosi. It's known from specimens, and there have been sighting reports to back it up, but it's not really touted as a cricket in the same way that the spotted lion is, because basically the spotted lion is scary, and that's it. And a small fluffy hair wallaby is not scary, and so people basically aren't interested in it. But I think it's pretty cool. This is not the species I'm talking about, it's just relative to Guinea Ryan. The Red Sea cliff swallow was found in 1984 in Sudan, and I think it looks similar-ish to that, at least. I'm not totally sure. Well, no one's really totally sure. But plenty of unidentified cliff swallows have been found in groups in Ethiopia. There was 20 individuals on one occasion, and between 3 and 8, I don't know what it's between 3 and 8 individuals on another occasion, which may be this species or another new species. Again, no one knows. Now, I think all this group of swallows are migratory, like our common barn swallow. And no one really knows if it actually lives in Sudan, or whether it was passing through, whether it lives in Ethiopia, whether it was just passing through again. No one has any idea about the species. And the tricky thing is, if you went to Sudan to actually try and look for it, again, God knows if you actually find it. Because, if you have the more collection data than just 1984, you won't be able to find. If it was following a strict migration pattern, if it was passing through the area at the same time each year, you might be able to find something then, but no one's really known. Slightly sort of controversial species, Mesopa controversy. Now, from all the data that I could find on this animal, this is known from a jaw from 1872, and then a bit of the skull from the 50s, and a bit of the skull from 1968. which are all from around New Zealand. There's one from Pitt Island, one from Robinson Crusoe Island, and it's never been seen alive. And it's been talked of being as being most likely the most poorly known again large animal species, 16 to 18 feet long. But as John said earlier, I was talking to Darren this morning, really early in the morning, and it may be synonymous with a different species of toothed whale, but I've no idea. I couldn't find anything, so I have to research that as well. So if this turns out to be the same thing and I got my facts wrong, I do apologise. But it's got its fantastic teeth here, which are really quite strange, I think, especially for a beaked whale. But they are interesting. Back to invertebrates. This is Ceroptopus. There's 4 species in this bizarre group. This is Morsoni, which was described in 1917. It's a mere 35 millimeters long, and it's not far off being the world's smallest octopus. So it's only tiny. And this is the type species of the genus. So it's the very first of its group to actually be described. There's just a couple more drawings of it. This is a drawing of the tentacles here, not tentacles, suckers here, just to give you a better idea. There's hooks on the end which help grip on things. But it's a very strange species. Salamanders. There's a Glossocopia, named in 2005. It's about, the whole animal is just over 6 inches long. So it's reasonably large. But it's got very broad, to be grouped at least, well-webbed hands and feet, particularly on the back, and it's got lots of white pigment on its underside, which you can't see here. But it's also got more maxillary teeth than any other species in the genus. This is a male holotype, and in this group, females always have way more teeth than males. I don't know why. But this one has more teeth than any others, which is interesting. Another species, Obscura, again, known from one animal, an adult female from 68, and this one has both smaller and fewer teeth than other species in the genus. So you've got two extremes: lots of teeth and very few teeth, which is interesting. Again, it's about the same sort of size, with much smaller, stronger limbs with reduced webbing. So these 2 animals are sort of on either side of this same sort of group. I've got my stuff here, but mine. This is Apele, which is in a group called the Cecilians, which are very enigmatic amphibians, often mistaken for worms or snakes. I think there's about 180 or so species currently described at the moment. And they come into the pet trade every so often. We've got a couple of aquatic ones back in CFZ. And this is a possible photo of one of the weirdest ones. There's a fairly well-known blue Cecilian, which buries in the ground, and that pops up in the pet trade every so often. But this is a relative of that, which was named in 1912, and the holotype, the original specimen, was completely lost, so it was only known from a drawing, which was collected in Cameroon. And apparently, according to the Edge blog, which is a good blog, I recommend you look at it, and a good website too, this photograph shows the species. I don't know if it does or not. The enigmatic species called multiple encounter always has over 150, the holotype has about 170, of these primary annuli, which are these sort of rings here, which make it look even more like an earthworm than it already does. Whereas the other species, the Lorcawn blue Cecilian, has fewer than 135. So there's this big gap between what is a fairly sort of obvious thing if you're a zoologist. But the photograph is too poor for me to even think about trying to count the annuli on this animal. So I don't know if it's This is another well-known animal, the Somalian bubu, Bulu Berkeley bubu, that's what it's called. It was collected in 1988, and it was thought so rare that only some blood and feathers were kept from the original animal, and it wasn't collected as a type. And a lot of zoologists weren't very happy about this. They said that the zoologists shouldn't be sort of kind-hearted, where they should have killed it, stuffed it, stuck it in a museum, and that'd be it. Which is a bit of a problem for the species, because no one, because if it wasn't sort of fully accepted, then conservation effort to try and save it wouldn't necessarily be fully accepted by all zoologists. It was a bit odd. But actually, but in 2008, molecular sequences were finally done on it, and it turned out to be a colour form which hasn't been seen again of a different species, which itself was split from a different species, so it's all sort of got mixed around, but that's some of the brilliant things that genetics can help with. But as I say, this particular colour form, with its very yellow breast hair and the white bands, jet black, it's a very striking animal, has never been seen again. And the trouble is, it being a colourmorph, a lot of people aren't interested in trying to say a colourmorph or a subspecies, because it's not a full species, which is a bit tricky, because a species is only a label that humans put on an animal. An animal does not say that it's one species, and there's no divine power or anything like that saying that this species is this species, and that's it. It's only us who say that a species is a species, which is a bit tricky, because a lot of people aren't interested in saving subspecies, when actually a lot of these animals can sort of change around. So earlier, I think it was earlier on this year, the northern white rhinoceros was separated from the southern white rhinoceros into a different species. They're originally known to be subspecies, same animal, and eventually it was found that they're not. Whether this taxonomic change was induced by the extreme rarity of the northern population, which is incredibly rare, or whether it is actually completely valid, I'm not so sure. But it seems to be well accepted, and to be honest, if it does get some more conservation, a huge animal, it's a 2-ton animal, then that's great. I personally don't really want to. But moving on again, this is a species of peccary, which peccaries are related to pig. They are not pigs, they are related. And this was discovered by a man called Van Roosmalen, who is currently working out in South America, and is describing all sorts of new species, loads of new monkeys, especially is what he's really interested in, that he's finding. And he discovered this in 2000, filmed it in 2003, and finally described it in 2007. This is one of the stills, this is still possibly a photograph itself, of the animal. And the locals in the area, speaking Tupi, which is the Indian tongue, call this animal as the collared peccary that is bigger and goes in pairs, to differentiate it from a relative, which we know as the collared peccary, and they call it the collared peccary that goes in herds. So this is quite interesting. But the collared peccary is a fairly well-known zoo animal, and it has, as one can imagine, a large white collar here. This is another photograph of this animal, Maximus. But this just shows the range of sort of morphological differences which can occur between these collared peccaries. There's a lot of confusion and a lot of debate as to whether this new giant peccary, because it is big, is actually within the morphological range of the collared peccary, or not. No one's totally sure. But these animals are well known for having a big, deep snout and quite short legs. And if we look back at this photograph, it's got quite a slim snout and much longer legs, which is very interesting. But in the original description, Van Roosmalen, he's known for he's well known for publishing descriptions of animals which are a little haphazard. I think he wants to get publications out that really quickly. Move on to the next thing. He's right as an excitable puppy, but I mean, I've got no doubt he's doing some amazing work on conservation. But this species is not fully accepted because he didn't do enough sort of measurements of different things. And as this says, these are my italics. You can read that yourselves. Great. But it's just a shame that when he described the species, he didn't give this his really necessary morphological description, and just ignore them, which is a bit of a shame. Again, we can see that. They did do some genetic tests, however, in its belt, and the diversion from this common peccary into this giant peccary was estimated at between 1 and 1.2 million years ago. So it's according to that, it's 1 to 1.2 is easily enough time to speciate into something else. But whether it is or not, no one really knows. And again, it's not been looked at by the IUCN, so I can't give you provide an estimate of how rare it is. No one really knows, but there you go. Well, thank you very much. We've whipped through a very quick summary of some of these animals only known from holotypes. I've had to omit an awful lot of animals, but there we go. I particularly want to show a big range of different things. But so many of these animals, well, at least one anyway, is reasonably well known to cryptozoologists because it's big, it's scary, it's not a cryptid. We've defined that, we've looked at that earlier. This animal is not a cryptid, but it's still very interesting. But it is spoken about an awful lot in cryptozoological literature, and I see no reason that all these other animals and more should not be they should have at least the same recognition that the spotted lion does, but to cryptozoologists as it is or was. But there you go. Hopefully you've learned something, and hopefully you'll be more interested in these bizarre animals as interested as I am. We've got time for questions?
Yeah, good. I was actually going to say, I'm sorry, I've been outside waiting for our special guest, who has now arrived and is having a cup of tea. But last night we were discussing cryptozoology, believe it or not. That's something we actually very seldom do discuss. But
yes,
3 in the morning in my kitchen, as Ian said. But Darren and Max and I were sitting around, and although the definition of a cryptid is a fairly solid one, I still think that there are a lot of things which are of interest to cryptozoology which aren't cryptids per se, including all these creatures that Max has described, which are animals which are only known from one or part of the specimen. These things, I think, are as valid a subject for cryptozoological researchers as many of the other more well-known creatures which are defined by the description of cryptozoology that we gave earlier. But, Max, thanks for coming.
Go ahead.
I said yesterday that what I do is I wander around the country meeting interesting people and doing interesting things. Well, Cara, I'm not going to be rude to you this time, because this was all your fault. I went to a boat show in Yeovil about 2 years ago. And we had a jolly good time, even though we actually made a grand profit, I think, of £2.70. But there was a frighteningly intelligent young man, 17, rushing around, halfway between us. He was being a very erudite and knowledgeable young proto-academic with one hand, and an excited schoolboy with the other, telling me, "What, I spent £170 on beetle larvae." Any boy that's spent £170 on beetle larvae has got to be a friend of mine. So we invited him down. and a week before his 17th birthday, he sat up all night, 18th birthday, he sat up all night with me and Graham, drank too much tequila and was violently ill. And ever since then, he's been basically a part of the CFZ. I can't imagine life without him. He's a frighteningly intelligent young upstart who will have my job eventually. What a horrible boy he is. My adopted nephew, ladies and gentlemen, Max Blake.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I'll whip through some references. References.
I'm bigger than you.
No, I know. 5 sources is very helpful, you get the idea. Anyway, go on.
That was completely pointless, Max.
Well, you've
Have we got any questions?
You've got to show it.
Oh, we've got plenty of questions. Okay, is that mic on? Yeah. Okay, we take it up. Is that it's Mike Hallowell at the back. Boy, I'm for the last 10 years, 11 years, since he turned up the first weird weekend, he's been trying to teach me to say, well, can you say where I'm at?
Where am I?
See, I still haven't managed to get it right.
Go for it.
Right, that was fast here. I really enjoyed that background. I've got a question, but I'm not sure if I'm not correct terminology.
That's fine.
You did a thing, I can't remember the name, was it a worm?
The amphibian, the Sicilian.
No.
I'll find it quickly. That.
I'm not, is that the one we said 100?
Yes, yeah, the primary annuli.
Right.
So,
something intrigued me, right? You said, if I thought you right, this particular one, was it the only one you found?
yes, yeah.
The normal number of those sort of segments or whatever was so many.
Yeah.
I just wondered how, if there's only that one, how can you work out what the real or standard number of those segments?
You can't.
All right.
Basically, that's the really tricky thing. If you've got one animal that you describe as a new species, it could be a freak, a mutant of a sort of more well-known animal. Which is this animal could be? No one knows.
Right.
That's the tricky thing about it. You see, that's what makes it so hard. So much variation.
Thanks very much.
But the thing that I find interesting is the way that the information about such new discoveries this gets disseminated. This one was the subject of a song by Simon and Garfunkel, which went, Cecilia, get down on your knees. Next question. I can't see, I'm sure somebody has got a question. Locked on Cara. It's always nice to have Cara, so I'm going to keep all weekend asking questions.
Okay, Max. Are they, I can't remember what they're called now, is there separate remain, just one of them?
The holotype.
Holotype. Okay, holotypes are just a genetic anomaly. Discuss.
There you go.
Don't understand the question.
That's perfectly possible. They could be. There's just so little data that we have on it to actually to separate it. If I can just go very briefly to the salamander, for instance, it's because it shows sort of these very different morphological traits. So it's got these. So this one's got the quite large sort of hands and feet and things with this large amount of webbing and then sort of spotting and things. I think it's distinct enough in enough areas to differentiate it from something else. If it just had some white spots over it, it might be considered something just an anomaly. But most of these animals show enough of a difference from other species in the group. They are distinct.
Next question is probably from Mr. Nick Bottom. He's probably going to come outside and give you a thump on the nose, take the meat out of his wife.
No, he does it all the time.
No, I'm too scared to. Not to thump you, take Mickey out of the car. Max, these holotypes, they're one-offs, and that's the beauty of them, and I think that's what's most fascinating about them. Do you think there could be any scope for DNA, barcoding to see if there is some possible hybridization between closely related species, thus creating those unique holotypes. Because if they're in remote locations, the chances of these species coming together are somewhat remote, which would then result in these unique holotypes.
No, you're absolutely right. Yes, but we just need someone with the time and the money to do it. But no one's interested.
Richard,
I was going to make a similar, ask for a similar question. Are these holotypes sufficiently well preserved for you, for instance, to be able to count the chromosomes? Because that's one of the things that distinguishes species sometimes.
Yeah.
And to be able to do the DNA testing to see whether they are very closely related or species that have been separated for a very long time. Are the specimens preserved that well?
Most of them are, yes. Yeah, the vast majority of them are. Some of them are sort of genetic data might be a little sort of corrupt. Whether you get much DNA from a skull? I'm guessing you can.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, yeah.
It depends on how.
You don't have to sound so belligerent.
Yeah, you can get DNA from a skull. It depends on how well preserved it is, or
you can get DNA from a skull. It all depends on how old it is, how well preserved, how it's been treated. Has it been laying out in the sun somewhere for months and months and months, or whatever? But you usually can.
Yeah. So that whale, for instance, you should be able to do some genetic studies to see how well it's sort of if it is actually a valid species compared to these other ones. But it's tricky. You can do, but as I say, you just need to find a research group with the time and the money and the interest to actually do it, rather than looking at more headline-grabbing topics.
I think DNA testing has become a lot cheaper.
It has, but I think it's about £50, per test.
That's not a great deal, is it?
It's something we can do at the very least. It has, but it's just, to be brutally honest, not.
Okay, last question from Science.
Oh, hi. Given what you were saying about spotted lions being more charismatic than little rat wallabies, whether one might have a go at resurrecting the Makati?
The
Marosi, sorry. Resurrecting the spotted lion if the DNA was in good enough nick and inserting it into a lion egg cell or something.
You could.
I mean, there's talk of resurrecting the Neanderthals and things in there as well.
Yeah.
Extreme end.
Whether it works.
Yeah, but while you're at it, could you have a bit of rhinoceros DNA to make it really huge? And then you can sort of implant laser beams in its eyes.
Yes.
Now that's what I call a predator. What about you, Rich? Don't you agree? Never mind, it was just my futile attempt at humour. Max, that was incredibly interesting.
You didn't listen to it?
No, I did last night when you read this on it to me. And you've been going on about it to me for the last 7 months, so I know perfectly well what was happening. And I read your notes. Ladies and gentlemen, Max Blake.